welcome to another video. I am Sherry and this is the house next door. I just wanted to talk today about some cool architecture that we've been learning about in school, and I just wanted to share some of my favorites with you. If you like this type of video, let me know in the comments. So the first place I want to share is Castelvecchio Museum. I'm probably saying that completely wrong and I apologize. The architect Carlos Scarpa, and the project was basically turning this medieval fortress into an art museum. Also, I apologize if you hear that. It's my dog snoring right next to me and she can't be bothered. The way he was able to bring both new and existing material together, it was almost like the past and present were holding hands. He took the time to frame artwork throughout the space. It wasn't just art was going to be added into this museum. It was him intentionally framing certain spaces so that the viewer, the user, as they walk through the space, they engage with certain pieces that were existing in certain ways. And I just think that's beautiful. It's the way materials meet. It was intentional. I don't think there was anything that was not thought about. And I think he worked on this project for about 20 years. So of course he had so much time to think about every single little detail. I think with Carlos Scarpa, the process itself was just as important to him as the final product. The way that you experience his work, you can really feel the timeline and the progression of the project. From just the pictures, you can really get a sense of the place and it feels alive almost. Scarpa designed the museum in a way where he's almost there with you, like, look at this detail, look at this one, come closer, experience this. I really enjoy how he leaned into the experience of the museum and not just restoring it. The next project I want to talk about is the Upper Lawn Solar Pavilion, and these were actually a married couple that created this project, and they were both architects. They basically bought this plot of land that was surrounded by a stone wall that they could not take down because it was a historical site. And so what they decided to do was make it a feature. They built their house right against the stone wall, and the back side of the house almost sits on top of the wall, but it's not what's structurally keeping it up that way. The contrast between the very old stone wall and this very modern, open, lots of big windows, that's where the beauty comes in, the contrast between the two. Then they had this whole front yard where they put pavers down and they expanded their garden. I think with this project, they really showed that there's always a way that you can work with the old and still bring in something new. So this was a pretty fun project. The house is actually for sale right now, so if anyone's interested. Okay, this next one is probably one of my favorite reused projects I've ever seen. The architect was Ricardo Bofill. The project was La Fábrica. And this one is situated in Spain. I think it has to be every architect's dream to have a chance to do a project like this. The reuse part of architecture is what I'm interested in, combining modern and existing. I think the combination is a great way to preserve history while still moving forward. Ricardo found an abandoned cement factory and said, this is my house. This is my house now. He filled it with gardens, his office is there, his studio, and then he's got his living spaces. He's got these massive concrete silos wrapped in greenery. As soon as you see it, it's soft, but it's brutalist. It's the two just combining and creating something beautiful. It's almost like certain apocalyptic movies where they show the rundown city that's been taken over by greenery. but it's somehow still very beautiful. It's almost like that, except obviously everything has been very intentionally designed, and the scale of everything is something else that I found very interesting. You just have these massive spaces, and the flow between indoor and outdoor use, it's that biophilic design that's also something that I am obsessed with. He had a great opportunity to reuse this abandoned space and make it modern and make it specific to what his needs were. I would love to find something like that one day and make it a project. Since the project is in Spain, it's very conducive for that indoor-outdoor flow. And of course, because it's more of a humid climate where he's at, the greenery just kind of takes over. It doesn't need much to fill in the gaps. But yeah, one of my favorites. This next one, although not specifically my style, it's a fun project, and it's Frank Gehry's house. His house in Santa Monica. It just started out as a normal pink bungalow, and then he started wrapping it in material. He started using chain link fence, corrugated metal, and glass, and eventually it all started to look more of an art piece, like a sculpture. And I think in this sense, he almost redefined what a house could be by refusing to finish it in the traditional sense, and that it could be something that's always evolving. You're still in that same original site, but you can make anything out of it, really, because it's yours. So I think that's the cool part about his project. This next one is another one where the concept and the process are just as fascinating as the final build. It's the Fresnoy Art Center by Bernard Jumi, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but this one is in France. This place used to be an entertainment complex back in the 1920s. It had old industrial buildings, cinema hall, but it was kind of broken down and it had lost a lot of its original shine. When Bernard came in, instead of just demolishing the old site and starting fresh, he decided to layer the new on top of the old. So then he built an enormous steel and glass canopy that floats over the existing structures. It's kind of like a gigantic roof that ties the whole thing together. And basically, instead of even smoothing out the old building and kind of refurbishing it, he left it as is, so it's very evident when you visit the site that this is very new and this is very old, but it's both clashing together, and that is where the beauty is. So yeah, that's another favorite from the ones we were talking about. One that I would love to visit. I love the old building in the yellow. I think that color is a big contrast with the new material that came in, but yeah. Okay, this next project was by Lina Bobardi, and this one is in Brazil, and it was another kind of abandoned industrial building, and she made it into a center for different things like sports, theater, workshops, community gatherings. And so what she did was she took this old industrial building and basically covered it in concrete and then created sky bridges to connect the buildings. And then probably one of my favorite parts is the use of red. I think in contrast with that very cold industrial concrete material, the red just brings the whole place to life. And the way she designed it, it's a multi-use space. It can change. That's part of the beauty of the project, is she took this old industrial factory and redesigned it so that people wanted to come back to this place. This next project was by Filman Architects in Copenhagen, and this was back in the 60s. These guys, basically they took another old abandoned industrial warehouse, that's the dream, and they reconfigured it really because they didn't take any material out. They just reconfigured it so that it became office use space. This one was a good example of how when you walk into this space you can feel the history because it's all of the same materials, but it's modernized now in the way that they use those materials. And I think that's a great example of how reuse can promote respect for the existing structure. It can still be reconfigured into something inspiring. Yeah. Okay, these last two that I'm gonna share are more just for fun, really. They're not necessarily architecture, but more so art, I think. But the first one is Rachel Whitered, and her house was House. And she basically took this condemned house and filled it with concrete. And so once the concrete was exposed, the outer walls disappeared. And it was really interesting because every room was sort of preserved as this solid concrete mass. And it was just sort of an example on how space can hold memory. Even when there is no one there anymore, you could almost feel the connection with past memories from the house. And that house doesn't exist anymore. I think it only lasted for maybe 6 months and it was demoed. The last one that I wanted to talk about is Erwin Worm's house. His project was Fat House, and this was just a really playful project. It almost looks like the house exploded in this insulation looking material. But I think all of these projects really just reminded me buildings don't have to die, even though their initial purpose is no longer there. There's always a chance to reimagine something, and it can even end up being more beautiful than the original intent. And even if it's a condemned house, there is some use for it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.